readings that we've just heard are very timely, because I don't know about you, but recent times it does feel like the world's gone a bit bonkers, and things are just a bit strange in many ways. And I do think these readings, pondering these readings, the first reading Psalm, the second reading, and especially the Gospel, they can give us great consolation, great confidence in dealing with the times that we live in. That we should not be shocked, we should not be surprised, and as Jesus says numerous times in this short passage, we should not be afraid. This first reading gives us an idea of a response to the world that we live in that seems to have gone mad. And the same with the Psalm. With the Gospel, we see Jesus sending the 12 and us on our mission and preparing us for that and what lies ahead. And I think the second reading from St. Paul to the Romans kind of helps us to make sense of it all. Just this first reading from the prophet Jeremiah, going too much into the context. He was living in times where things were rather confused, where good was confused for evil, evil for good. There was great injustices in his time. And he was able to speak out and was shouted down, was accused of going against what is good. Shouted down, in these days we call it being cancelled. But also through his life he speaks about hope, that glimmer of hope, and he holds on to that. But he speaks here about the reality of a situation where he's under siege, terror from every side. Denounce him, let us denounce him, they say. All of those who used to be my friends watch for my downfall. It can seem like everyone's against. But in the midst of that, he says words which I think we need to constantly remember, unless we to guard off being tempted to fall into perhaps the problems that maybe the other side find themselves in. He says, "But the Lord is at my side, a mighty hero." This is something that we must never forget. And we can, I think, maybe sometimes in our zeal, forget that. Forget that Jesus has everything under control, especially in times when it doesn't seem so. These words, I think, written a very long time ago, these following words: "My opponents will stumble, mastered, confounded by their failure." I think these words we need to remember. Those who have strange, radical Marxist ideas that somehow permeate our society, they eventually stumble and fall and destroy themselves. I think we, the church, as believers, as people who are grounded in the truth, we need to just stand firm. We need to certainly be convinced of our faith, convinced of the message that Jesus gives us, and be firm in that. And trust other people will see that. Other people will see perhaps a world that seems to have gone mad, that seems to make no sense. Will see that and be attracted to that. Eventually, strange ideas, evil ways destroy themselves. And there's trust in that. As Jesus says in the Gospel, this is just after Jesus is speaking to the 12, speaking of the persecutions that they will face, preparing them. Then he sends them with the instructions: do not be afraid. He speaks of those things that covered, all the confusion will be uncovered, will be made clear. And then these words which I pondered, which I think are very, very helpful for us. Well, Jesus' words are generally that. He says, "What I say to you in the dark, tell in the daylight. What you hear in whispers, proclaim from the housetops." What is it that what is he saying in the dark? What is the context of is speaking in the dark, these whispers that we hear. I think it's amidst all of the confusion, all the craziness that might go on around, all the distractions that fighting to take us off course, that quiet encounter with Jesus, recognizing that we only hear God in silence, in the quiet, without all that going on. And we do at times need to remove ourselves from all of the craziness and even the combat of that, to be with him, to hear him whisper to us the truth. And this is what we hold on to. This is what we can proclaim confidently in the daylight, on the housetops. He reminds us of what we are to fear, what we are to not fear. We are not to be afraid of, as he says, those who kill the body. I think that's perhaps quite timely as well now, when we are almost afraid of each other. We kind of have been trained over these last months almost to see each other as a potential disease. What terrible thing that is, what terrible situation we are in. We're called to truly be with those that we care for, show love to those who are around us, not the opposite, not to fear our neighbour and to allow our neighbour to fear us. So to have that, I think we need to have that in mind through all the situation that we're going through, certainly with common sense, but to not forget what is truly important. Our loved ones, those who are close, caring for our neighbour, not remaining at a distance. Hopefully we are not trained into that going in the future, to the future. Jesus says, if anyone declares himself for me in the presence, if anyone declares himself for me in the presence of men, I will declare myself for him in the presence of my Father in heaven. We can only do that. We can only declare the truth, what we believe in, if we are convinced of it. If we are truly have that encounter with Christ. If we know for sure that he is with us, that he looks after us, that he genuinely cares for us, no matter what. I think that second reading we just heard, St. Paul speaking about sin, that we have all sinned. I think we're living in a world that has lost the sense of sin, of individual sin. And it's very easy for when things go wrong, things are unjust, to group people together, to put blame on particular identities, as opposed to recognizing the reality of individual sin, of our sin and the sin of others. And I think most importantly, if we've lost the sense of sin, we've also lost the sense of redemption. Therefore, a mistake that one might have made in a comment 20 years ago remains and can never be redeemed. That's the kind of the culture that we live in. But as Christians, it's not the case. We recognise there is the opportunity to start again. We recognise that we all are sinners, that we make mistakes, that we err. But there is always the possibility, because of what Jesus has done for us, the possibility of redemption, the possibility of starting again. I think if we look closely in the world, we've lost that sense. People have lost that sense. But I think we as humans have some sort of an idea of that, of injustice. But generally, I think in the world, can't see it for what it is. And perhaps find excuses and blame other things, which is the original sin. But let us, especially in this time, recognise that we have a Saviour who has done all for us, who has given his life for us, in order that we can start again, in order that we can, yes, see the injustices, see the terrible things that are going on in society, a society that doesn't make sense a lot of the time, but not be caught in it, not be caught up in the same mistakes that we perhaps accuse others of. The church is able to, because it's grounded in the truth, find that middle way. We stand firm. So it doesn't need to be torn to any extreme, because we are grounded in the truth of Jesus Christ.